morning, students. I hope everyone can see my screen. So, in last class, we have discussed about JUnit, and we have seen how to create test cases, and we understood about the different annotations and the static methods that are available in the assert class. I have discussed about 6 basic annotations that will be mostly used in real time. That is at the rate test, and within the brackets, you will even specify the timeout, and at the rate before class that will be invoked only once before starting any of the test, after class which also will be invoked only once, that is after completing all tests, at the rate before which will be invoked before each test case processed, at the rate after which will be invoked after each test case processed. So these are the 6 mostly used annotations, and from JUnit 4 onwards it's completely annotation based. And we have also seen few of the assert methods of assert class, and in the yesterday's demonstration I have shown you how to use assert equals, which takes 2 arguments. One is the expected argument, the other one is the actual argument, and it checks if both expected and actual are equal, then only it will return success, else it will return failure, and even it will give you the failure trans, which will show you the expected value and the actual value. And at the end of the session, I have even shown you how to create a test suite. The advantage of test suite is, rather than running one after the other test case classes, you can just group multiple test case classes under one test suite, and then you can simply run this test suite, which will automatically run all the test case classes that are part of that test suite. So that's what we have covered in the last session. So moving on after JUnit, here we are supposed to discuss the IO streams, and after IO streams you will be having this assessment milestone 1, but still it's not yet opened because we have given certain duration date. I have shown you the schedule. So as per the schedule only it will be enabled. So I have said you this is the schedule we have shared. So I think it's enabled now. You can just check that assessment milestone once. Right now, if I just click on that, it will be session expired because since it's being loaded, I have just opened the PBL app before the class commencement itself. That's why you can just still see the pages. But once I click, definitely it will come session expired since it is being idle over a long period time. So anyway, today's agenda is we will cover this IO streams, and in IO streams also we will basically discuss about the byte streams and character streams. And after discussing byte streams and character streams, I'll just show you a small piece of code demonstrating you how to perform serialization and deserialization of the object. It's very important to understand this serialization concept as part of these streams. So I'll just show you a small demonstration that how we will be performing this serialization concept of object using the IO streams concept, and then we will be discussing about the coding standards or best practices. Here you can see After IO streams, anyway assessment milestone, it has to be done by you, and logic building M2A also, it has to be carried out by you. So I'll discuss the coding standards or best practices very quickly, and if time permits, we will just get introduced to collections. So this is what today's agenda. Since from 10 onwards, most of the colleges will be running this PBL lab, it might get slow. That's the reason I'm just opening these pages and keeping it for you. So this is what the IO streams introduction. And first you need to understand what a stream is meant for. IO, anyway, you all know that IO stands for input output. And what is a stream? So this is what the definition of a stream. A stream is an abstraction that either produces or consumes information. Every stream will be linked to a physical device by Java's IO system. That's the reason we are saying we will be having input streams as well as the output streams. And remember that a stream can be connected only to one at a time. That means you cannot have a single stream performing both input and output. If you are creating a stream for input, it can perform only reading. If you create a stream for output, you can perform only writing. So you cannot have a stream that can perform both. I mean, it's not something like a pipe having a two-way communication. That's the point I would like to convey. So a stream is not like a pipe having two-way communication or a two-end open. So you can have only read end or write end. If the stream is created for input, it will be only performing reading. If the stream is created for output, you can perform only writing. Just remember this point. And all the streams behave similarly even if the actual physical devices differ, because by nature input stream is always meant for performing reading irrespective of the types of input devices being used. Similarly, output stream is meant for writing irrespective of the place where it is being written. You can write it to the console, you can write it to a file, you can write it to some error log, whatever might be, but the streams behave same. I mean, input stream, irrespective of the input devices being used, they always behave to read. Similarly, output stream, irrespective of the place where it is being written to, they all behave same. That's what the point to be noted here. Yeah, here is the thing you can just understand. So Java stream classes are defined in java.io package. So Java 2, now we are in Java 8. So Java 2 onwards we have these types of streams. So prior to that we don't have the concept of streams, we used to have only byte streams. So from Java 2 onwards we have two types of streams, both byte streams and character streams, and in real time we will be mostly using character streams than compared to byte streams. Remember this point also. In real time application developments we will be using character streams more compared to the byte streams, and prior to Java 2 we don't have these character streams, we used to have only byte streams. So byte streams is used for handling both input and output in bytes, that is for binary data purpose, whereas character streams we handle both input and output using Unicode, which is the internationalization. We already discussed that character in Java consumes 2 bytes because of support of Unicode, whereas C, it just supports ASCII code. That's the reason there you used to have only 1 byte. So character streams here will be using Unicode, which is internationalization. And the predefined streams, these are the 3 predefined streams. Of course we may not be using this system.er, that is error, generally, because we are used to only system.out for writing to the console and system.in for reading from the keyboard. These are the mostly used uh, streams, but system.err we generally don't use. But the point to be noted is, in real-time application development, you will be using system.err only, because so far, like in the previous cases also, we have seen, like whenever we are using this exception handling, we are writing within the catch block like system.out.println, and then we are writing the e. That means we are trying to print the stack trace, or we are trying to print the object that is being thrown as exception directly on the console. But in real time applications, we generally don't display that error information to the client or end user, because generally it will be not understandable for them, as the developer is the one who can understand that. And another reason is that stack trace, whatever that is being displayed, it displays the sources names. It displays the sources names. So this is the place where it caused exception, and this was being called by this particular class, and this class is being invoked by this particular class. Like that you will be getting that complete information now. So that is the reason in real time application developments, generally in the catch of whatever the handling mechanism is there, in that handling mechanism we will not generally directly display that particular error information directly on the console or on the client environment. We try to redirect it to some error log, where that error log is being accessed by the developer side, so that he can go through that log information, and then he can try to update the project. So this is what in general. But in real time we will be using this system.err also, even though right now for academics or for regular practice purpose we don't use it. Now I'll just demonstrate you a small piece of code also for showing you how we will be redirecting that. But just remember the fact that we will be having three of the stream variables: in, out, and er, err, where in is the input stream variable, that by default it will be keyboard. Out is the output stream redirecting variable, by default out redirects to the console. And err, that is err, by default it is the error stream, and by console is the default output, but even we can redirect to the some separate file also. I'll just show you that with a small piece of demonstration now. Okay, let me first show you that. I'll just open Notepad, because I'm not using IDE for demonstrating you this. The reason is, with IDE you have error log file there itself, which you can directly see it in IDE. But I just want to show you with command prompt how you can redirect these things to separate files. The output can be redirected to separate file, and the error information can be redirected to separate file. I just want to show you that. That's the reason I'm using Notepad and command prompt for demonstrating you this. So let me just, I hope my screen is visible. Let me increase the font size. Okay, so I'm just creating a small piece of code for demonstrating you this. So class stream demo, this name is from the manual itself, and then I'm just creating public static void main, and then the string argument, and then I'm just writing inside a try, because I'm performing some division operation. So I'm just printing simple message test, and then here I'm just creating a variable int I equal to 0, int j equal to some 10 by I. We know the answer, but here our intention is just to make sure that how we can redirect output and error to separate files. Catch exception E, and here you see what I'm doing. So instead of writing system dot out, I'm just using system dot err. So this is it. You can just see what I have done. So I've just created a class stream demo and public static void main, and then try, and then in that I've just written test, because I just want some output message also to be printed. For that reason I've just written some message test, and then int I equal to 0, int j equal to 10 by I know that it will be raising exception. So when the exception is raised, so the error the catch block will be executed. So for that reason I'm just using this system.out.err. So here you can see I'm not using directly this print. Instead of that I'm using err, so that I want to redirect this information to the error console. For that reason I'm just using this, and let's, so okay, it's in E drive. Let me use it in E drive, and in E drive I'll just save it with stream demo.java. And then now what we do is we'll open command prompt. So let me change it to E drive. So E colon enter, and since I have directly saved it there, let's compile it in E drive. So java c space stream demo.java. If no errors, it should work fine. It should give me the prompt. Okay, there is one error. Okay, reached end of file while parsing. Let's get back to the code. Okay, here the one more brace is required, because this closing brace is for catch. This is for main. This has to be for class. Once again, I've just Control S, and come back to command prompt. Press up arrow. Still one error. Okay. Here system dot r dot instead of out we have to use err. Instead of out we have to use err. So that's the error. Once again save it. Yeah, it worked fine. So errors are gone. So you can see the thing. Now what we will do is, instead of directly saying Java stream demo, what I'll be doing is I'll just redirect the things. So Java stream demo space, and I'm just keeping greater than sign, indicating that greater than indicates redirection operator. So I'm saying output should be redirected to, and I'm just giving the name output dot log. That means I'm just creating a log file with the name output, and I'm saying output to be redirected to the output.log rather than showing it in the console itself. Space 2. So this 2 is by default standard error will be, there will be some numerical codes, that is for output it's 1, for input it's 0, and for output it is for error it is 2. So this the standard integer codes. So error dot log. So this is how you have to redirect the output and error files if you don't want them to be displayed in the console. And now when I just press enter, you can see nothing is being displayed. So if we go to E drive, now what we do is we will just go to E drive, and there you can see now. Okay, let me use magnifier otherwise. So here you can see now in E drive streamdemo.java, which we just created now, and then the class file is generated, and after interpreter is executed. So you can see two files were created, and in the output you can just see what is there. So test message you can see in the output, and similarly if you open error you can see error message being displayed. So whatever the try system.out.print is there, that is redirected to output.log, and whatever the catch block print is there, since we have used system.err, that is being redirected to the error log. So this is how you will be redirecting the things. And as I said, in real time you will be using this. In real time you will be using this system.err, because you are not interested to print the error informations to the client, which is not recommended because he can't understand it. Even though another reason is all your class names and all your interface names will be displayed there. So that's what the three stream variables. And anyway, this we have just seen. Let's get back to the next file. Yeah, IO operations. Here in IO operations, we are going to see what are the different streams. So reading and printing to console. So input stream reader acts as a bridge between the byte and character streams. But in most of the real-time applications also, we are used to use the util class scanner for most of the times for reading, rather than going to this input stream reader, which is part of java.io package. So buffered reader will support this buffered input stream, and this is how it will be: buffered reader, reader input reader. But as I said, in real time mostly we are used to use the scanner class of util package for reading the data. This is how you will be using the buffered reader. Instead of using scanner, you can also use like this, but just remember that you need to import java.io package for this. Just like for using scanner, how you will be importing java.util package, similarly for using this you have to import java.io package. So buffered reader, br, any variable you can just give, but since it is buffered, b, reader, r are just taken for reference variable. You can just take any variable, and this is how you will be doing. System.in, by default this will be read from keyboard. Standard input console is keyboard. So here you can see, if it is with our scanner, you will be just doing sc.next. So the difference you already know. Print means whatever the whatever the information you are writing inside this print, it will be printed and the cursor stays in the same line. Whereas println, whatever the information that is there in the inside this, it will be printed, and the console, sorry, the cursor will be moving to the next line. That's the only difference. So writing and reading from file. So compulsory, when you are dealing with files, you have to make sure that you will be handling one exception, that is file not found exception, which is part of the IO package only, which is part of the IO package, and it is subclass to IO exception. File not found exception is subclass to IO exception, and these are available in IO package. So whenever you are dealing with files, you must and should handle this exception, file not found exception. If you are not interested to handle, at least you should declare throws file not found exception across the main method or whichever method you are trying to use this. Or simply you can also write like this: IO exception instead of file not found exception, because anyway file not found exception is subclass to IO exception. Okay, what we will do is, anyway this is all theory which you can just refer to it. Now I'll just tell you about serialization, and I'll just demonstrate you with a small program how you will be performing this serialization. So rather than once again going through this theory, I'll just tell you how to perform this serialization. Now, what is the purpose of serialization and why do we require this serialization? So basically serialization is saving the state of an object and then restoring it when and where required. That's what simply you can remember as part of serialization. So serialization means saving the state of an object and restoring it whenever you require. So you can just flush the object, and then whenever you want you can perform deserialization, and then you can just make it alive. You can just make it alive by retrieving all the values that the object used to have. So it's possible by implementing an interface called serializable. It is possible by implementing an interface called serializable. So this is also part of this java.io. So serializable interface, if you are going to implement this, then automatically your class objects can be serialized, and later when required, even though the object is no longer existing because of JVM's garbage collector destroying it or flushing it out of the heap memory, you can still restore that object, and the object can gain life by restoring the values that the object used to have before losing its space in the heap. So we will just directly understand this with an example program, how we can perform this serialization. So let us get back to our IDE, that is Eclipse, and so talent is the package which I am using. Let's create a simple class, some name student. I'm just creating a simple class student, and I'm just not going to keep much information in this. We'll just add ID and roll number to this. Sorry, ID and name, and then let us use the constructor, because whenever you are going for this serializations also, you must and should make sure that you will be having public constructors, so that you can restore this object from any package, because by making public you can have these things accessible from anywhere. So I'm just creating a public constructor, so that I'll be int role string something name, and then here what I'm doing is, so id will be equal to the role which I'm going to pass at the time of object creation, and name will be having the value name which I'm going to pass it at the time of object creation. And as I said, to implement this serialization, what is the interface you need to implement? Serializable. So for that reason I'm just implementing my class serializable interface. So as I said, you need to import IO package. So that's the suggestion it is giving. Serializable interface is part of IO package, so you need to import that. So IDE anyway gives you the quick fixes, letting you to directly get that imported on the top, and just save it. Okay, string spelling mistake. Just save this, and now what we do is we will create a class for performing serialization first, and later one more class we will create to perform deserialization. So serialization demo. So this is serialization demo, and then within this serialization demo what we will do is, okay, anyway I require main also. So in this what we will do is, we have to first create object, then only we can flush it out, and later we can once again reconstruct it after flushing it. So I have to pass id and name to this. So let me just give one, and name, I'm just giving my name, Krishna. So now what I have done is I've just created an object, uh, that is yes, with id 1 and with name Krishna. And then what we have to do is, let's create file output stream. So we are just creating a file output stream, and let's give some file name. It may not be existing in your system. By default it will automatically create and do that. And you can understand what is this error, because you require IO package. So just click on IO, and then we will create one more stream, that is to object output stream. So I'm just creating object output stream also, and then what I'm going to pass to this object output stream is the my file stream, file output stream object I'm going to pass as argument. And again the same thing, if you just go there, it will give you the quick fix, import that. And then what you are going to do, whatever the object that you have created, what is the object we created? I just created an object, yes, that is for a new student object is being created by setting id as 1 and name as Krishna. And then we have created a file output stream, and we are writing this particular sorry, we are just creating a file output stream with a file name as f.text. And then we created output stream object and passed this particular file object to this output stream. And then now what we have to do is, whatever the student object we created, we just need to write it to this output stream. Just writing this. Okay, spelling mistake. Anyway, o dot write object, and then now we will just flush it. After done, we will just flush that thing, and now we will just close this stream, that is the output stream. And for this try we require a catch, so I'll just simply implement one catch, that is the supermost of all exceptions, so that whatever the exception will be, everything will be caught by this. That is it. So now you can see what we have done. So I have just created a serialization class, and this need not implement anything, because the implementation of serializable interface is being already done by the student class. Let's close this. These are all of yesterday's demonstrations. Yeah, so in student anyway we have implemented the serializable interface. So in this what we are doing is, we have just created a student object by setting the id and name, and then we created a file output stream with f.text being a new file being created. And then the object output stream is created by passing the file object as a parameter. And then we invoked write object by passing the new object into it, and then we flushed the object and we closed the output stream. Now what we do is, with this what is happening is, first let us run this. Okay, one thing, even though I run this, nothing will be done, because in try we haven't written any statement. So let us just write one simple statement. because there's nothing to print on the console. uh, I'll just write test. Now if things were fine, that is serialization is applied. Yeah, here you can see test being printed, so which I have written at the end of the try. So serialization is successfully performed. Now what I'll do is, let's create one more class to perform deserialization. We'll perform deserialization. So deserialization demo. So I'm just creating another class for performing this deserialization. And again in this so in this again instead of input stream, now we will be requiring output. Sorry, instead of output stream, we require here input stream. So I'm using object input stream. So and here I have to pass that particular file input stream. What is the file input stream name? We have used f.text. So this thing we have to read it there. But instead of saying file output stream, we will just say file input stream. And then it should end with semicolon. And then here this has to be imported. And similarly, object output stream also should be imported. Sorry, object input stream also to be imported. And now what we have to do is, we have to get that object which we have flushed it in the serialization code. Student s equal to I dot. So here you can see you will be finding a method read object. So here you can see you can find a method read object. So we are just using that. What is that? Okay, uh, this is the advantage with the IDE. So it will give you the quick fixes. So read object will be reading the object and returning object, but to which type you want to read the object, because here I'm using on the left hand side, yes, that is of student type. We need to perform this casting explicitly. uh, the advantage of IDE, as I said, it is only giving me the quick fixes. Add cast to student. If I just select this option, automatically the casting will be done. I hope everyone getting the point what is being done. So I'm just making use of the object input stream, and then whatever the file I have just created in the serialization code, that I am just reading it. And then with the object input stream, I am performing the read object, so that whatever that is been written by using the output stream dot write object we have written, the same thing we are reading it. But this will be returning object type. This will be returning object type. Here you can see it is returning object type. But here you have to specific what type of object. So that is the reason we are performing this casting. And now we will just try to display that information. So s dot id, and we also require a name to be displayed. So plus, let's give some space, plus s dot name. Whatever the one and Krishna we have created, that's being flushed out, we are just trying to retrieve it. And after this we'll just close this stream object. We have to close all the streams that were open. It's our responsibility. So I'll just include this catch which I've done here. The same thing, I'll just copy it. I just copied. Let's paste the same thing. So I think things are fine. Now let's run this and check. Right click, run as. Yeah, it's working fine. So this is how you perform serialization and deserialization using the object output stream and input stream. So whichever objects you want to have serialization, that particular class should implement serializable. Just remember the points. So whichever objects you want serialization, first that class should implement serializable, and then you need to have your serialization code, which must contain object output stream that writes to some file, and then you need to perform write object, and then you will be having your deserialization when and where required by just creating input stream and reading that particular file where you have written this serialization code, and then you will just use the method read object, which will return that particular object information. It will retrieve, and then this is how you can just do that. And this casting is required because by default this read object method returns of object type, but which object you have to specify. For that we are doing this casting. And a few points to be noted here is, let me just tell you, if I'm saying here static, okay, let's just compile this, and then once again let me just run this serialization code as well. So it's just giving me test, it's working fine. And let's once again run the deserialization code. So this is the point to be noted. So static fields cannot be serialized. This is the point I wanted to convey. That's the reason I just made id field as static, and you can see what is the output now. So static fields cannot be serialized. This is very important point to be noted. And one more thing which I want to show you is, so instead of static I can also use another word, transient. So here you see what is the keyword I have used. I think you must be familiar by the static word by now. So static word is used for the instance variables, just to make sure that that variable will be common for all the objects of the class. And transient keyword, you can use it only when you implement serializable interface. Transient keyword, you can use it only when you implement serializable interface, not in regular classes. And transient keyword also is the same reason why we use. So transient keyword, if you use also, that particular variables cannot be serialized. So it's working, and let's check the deserialization. Yeah, here you can see again 0, because by default we know that all instance variables will be initialized to 0 if they are integers, will be initialized to 0, 0.0 if they are float or double. So we know that fact. So that's the reason, even though we are setting number id as 1, but still since I am using static or transient keywords, they cannot be part of the serialization process. That is the reason when you are performing deserialization, those values are not retrieved. Those values are not retrieved. Instead of that, default values are only being set. Default values are only being set. So this is the point to be noted here. So here, transient or static keywords if used, transient or static keywords if used for the instance variables, then you cannot make them part of the serialization. You cannot make them part of the serialization. So this is the point to be noted as part of this serialization. And now let's go to this coding standards. So it's very important. This coding standards, even though it is defined for Wipro, but you have to understand that all industry practices are applying these coding standards. So even now, as part of training to you, when I am running programs, I am not using these coding standards, because only to make you understand the concept, I am not implementing the variable names or method names or class names that much meaningful. I'm just writing it for faster explaining the concepts. So but just remember, these coding standards are very important. So file organization, how you have to organize the files. Right now you can see I'm just creating and dumping all the files under one simple package, that is a talent package. In the IDE, I've been using the same talent package for just creating all files. But in real time, you will not be allowed to do that. You have to have some file organization mechanism. That means you need to have various packages, and you need to have classes grouped to the category of packages only, and then naming conventions. So we'll see how to name packages, or how to name classes or interfaces, how to name methods or constructors, how to name variables. All these things are important while you give any names. And then documentation, formatting, and Java beans. These are all the things we are going to cover as part of the coding standards. So coming to file organization, so here this is what you need to remember. So Java source file should have the following order: file header, package declaration, import declarations, class or interface declarations. So the file header is nothing but, even though we are not used to it, but generally what you have to do is you need to have some comment as the very first thing. It can be a multi-line comment or a single line comment, but in real time, when we will be creating any file, we will be writing some documentation comment there. I hope all of you might be knowing by now that Java supports three types of comments: single line comments, multi line comments, documentation comments. So single line comments will be represented by two forward slashes. Multi line comments, you will be having it with forward slash asterisk, and any number of lines you can have comments, and ended with asterisk forward slash. Whereas the Java documentation comments is a special type of comment that's only supported by Java, not by your C or C++, which have only single line, multi-line comments. But in Java, we have the third type of comment, that is Java doc comments, we say that, and it is started with forward slash two asterisks and ended with asterisk forward slash. So this is the third special type of comments that's used in Java doc comments. And why I am saying is, so every source file that we are creating, it should contain file header. Generally we are not doing that, but it should contain a file header containing all the information. What is this file, what it contains, what are the operations it will have, who is the author of this file, like that. So much information you need to put in this file header. Who is the client, or who is the owner of this file, all such informations you have to keep it in the file header, and that you will be doing in a doc comments. That's what I just mentioned all this. And next, the package declaration. As I said, right now we are just doing everything in one package, talent. But in most of the cases, I think even you people, when you used to perform your lab experiments, you will be not creating any packages at all. You directly create classes and you just execute them. That means you are putting all the classes in one package. Even though you are not naming it, we call it default package. But industry doesn't let you to do that. You can never have even a single class in a default package. So this point to be remembered. So package declaration is must. That means every class or every file you make, it should contain first the file header and then the package statement. Anyway, file header is nothing but a comment, so you need to have the first line as package statement. So that package uh, indicates that this particular file and all the classes and interfaces that are defined in that particular file will be part of that package. So the package declaration makes it clear that all the classes and interfaces that will be written in that file will be present in that package. And after the package declaration, you should have your import declarations. And while doing this import declarations also, care must be taken that no star will be used. I mean, so far we are just used to write like java.io.star, import java.util.star, something like this. But in real time, they will not let you to do that, because you all know, as per the theoretical concept, star indicates import the entire package. But in reality, you might be just using one or two classes from that package. But still, if you are importing all the classes or interfaces that are part of the package, and when you compile, then automatically the entire package classes and interfaces also to be recompiled as part of your actual file. But in real time, you are not going to create the project with simple or short lines of code. You will be having huge lines of code, and huge number of classes interfaces will be part of your project, so which that is not permitted again to have additional classes and interfaces being imported unnecessarily. For that reason, when you write import declarations, you must make sure that you are not going to use something like import java.io.star, import java.util.star, import java.sql.star. That's not recommended. You must make sure that you will be doing with specific class imports only. You have to do with specific class imports only. That's what import declarations major rule. And then the class or interface declarations. So this is how you should make sure that whatever the file you are creating will be having the following order. First, file header, which contains the complete information, what this file is being created for whom this file is being created for, what are the operations this file will contain, who is the owner of this file, what is the Java version you have taken into account for creating this file. All that information you will be writing in the file header in form of the Java doc comment, and then the package for which this file belongs to. When we say file belongs to a package, you should understand all the classes and interfaces that you declared, I mean you created in that file, will be part of that particular package only. And always remember that in a single file you can have n number of classes and interfaces, but you can have only single public class. I repeat, in a in a single file, you can have n number of classes and n number of interfaces, but you can have only one single public class, and that public class name will be the file name. This is what the coding standards you need to remember. You can have any number of classes and interfaces, but only one single public class, and that class name should be your file name. That's what the point need to be remembered. And as I said, import declarations also avoid using star. Avoid using star. Suppose you are using three classes from a single package, we are generally lazy to write three separate lines. That is the reason we simply say that import java.io.star. But generally we have to write like this only: import java.io.file input stream, import java.io.file output stream, import java.io.object input stream, import java.io.object output stream. So this is how you should write, even though it comes in more number of lines. But the point to be noted is you are increasing the lines, but you are reducing the compilation time. This point need to be understood. You might be increasing the lines, but you are reducing the compilation time. And when you are dealing with huge projects, it's very much important. Even that small fraction of time plays a major role. And another rule also need to be remembered here is, when you are importing multiple packages like this, suppose you just now as I mentioned, if you are importing four classes from one package, you will write all these four lines in continuous, and then you will just give a one line space if you are importing from some other package. It's a good way of making your code understandable and readable. Like I said, so whatever the java.io you have implemented in imported in four lines, after that you will leave one line, and then you will import another package classes. So this is the grouping and making things visible and easy understandable. And then Even for class or interface declarations also the same thing. After ending a class, generally we will not be leaving a line, but it's good always to leave some lines, leave some one line and then start declaring another class or interface. So this is what you just need to remember as part of that. Yeah, here is the example, file header example you can see. So here you can see what is the information. So copyright information, customer specific copyright notes, file name, short description about this file, version number, when it is created, modification history, all such information need to be written in this particular file header. And package declaration, when you are doing, always make sure that the entire package name should be in small letters only. The entire package name need to be in small letters even though it contains multiple words. So it's a good way of writing, keeping in account. And here you can see this rule is mandatory thing. You can see in the theoretical part also, it is mandatory to remember this package name. And then and that too, right now we are just importing with simply a talent package like that. But in reality they will not let you to have the package name so simple like that. They will ask you to have the package name like uh, with as per the industry standards. For your demonstration, what I'll just do is, let me just open my, I'll just import my project which I have got for Wipro certification exam for your understanding how it looks like, just to show you that. Let me open the project, that is which I have got. Okay, this is my project which I have got for my certification exam. I'll just show you how they will be asking. And then I just want you to understand how it will be given. Here you can see in the source. So this is how. I hope you can see. So this is the project which I have got for my certification exam final round. Here you can see the package hierarchy, com.wipro.flight. So the project which I have received is some flight mechanism. So in that flight I have to check for the availability of flight or not, like that. That's the project which I have got in my final round exam of Wipro certification exam. So you can see the package hierarchy just to make you understand how the package names will be. So the DNS name, generally it is wipro.com now, but in reverse order they will be writing com.wipro.flight is the project. And under flight project we will be having several types of things need to be done. Beans we need to create, DAO, that is data access objects, we need to create, util, which will be containing the JDBC connections, all that, and the service which contains the service classes. So this is how the hierarchy will be organized. I just want you to understand the file organization mechanism. So see, the package names are also not very simple. I mean, not the direct names. You will be having the hierarchy. So if you open in the system, how it will be is, if you open my CPC folder, you will be having SRC folder. If you open SRC folder, you will be having com folder. Inside com folder, you will be having Wipro folder. Inside Wipro folder, you will be having flight folder. Inside flight folder, you will be having four folders: one bean folder, one DAO folder, one service folder, one util folder. So in bean folder, you will be having all bean classes. In DAO folder, you will be having all DAO classes. In service folder, you will be having all service classes. In util folder, you will be having all util related classes. So this is how you need to understand how to organize the files in real-time project development. And see the package name also, all small letters. So the DNS name comes first. If at all you are creating some project for Virtusa, the same style, com.virtusa. Whatever the project name that you will be giving. dot, and then the particular folder names for the corresponding classes. So all bean related classes you will be keeping in bean package. All DAO related classes, that is data access object related classes, you will be keeping in DAO. And all service related classes you will keep them in service package. And all util, that is connection related, database connection related classes, it can be MySQL connection or whatever it is, Oracle connection, whatever it is, all such classes will be part of the util package. So I hope all of you are understanding why I have opened my project. So just to make you understand how the file organization has to be, so you should have something like this. So the DNS name in reverse order you will be seeing. You can just Google it and see some Wipro project, some other company projects also. But the basic standard is like this only: com dot, company name dot, project name dot, and then these things. I hope you are able to get. Let me get back to the documentation. Yeah, so this is how you will be performing the file organization. And here also you can see when you are importing, as I said, yeah, here you can see the best example. Here you can see import java dot, so java dot, all related things, and then separated by one line, one empty line you can see here. And then you are having this import com dot wipro dot, and then one more empty line, and then static imports. So this is what the point I was mentioning. So a single blank line should be added to separate the groups. So it just makes things understandable to everyone. And here you can see in all these imports, nowhere you can find star. In all these imports, nowhere you can find star. Compulsory, even though it's coming in more lines, doesn't matter. You have to import specific classes or interfaces, but no star usage in real-time application development. But for our regular programming, we will be using it, because we are not writing that much huge lines of code which will make my Java compiler so hard. For that reason we are used to. But in real time application developments, you will be developing very large projects, which by nature it will consume so much time for the compiler. And if you also still give much load to compiler by writing star, it will take more time for your project, and you will be ruled out of the market. So for that reason, avoid using star. And then while naming the classes or interfaces, I think these things you already know. So when you name class or interface, compulsory each word's first character should be capital letter. These things I think you already know that, because during your academics also you might have been taught by your Java faculty. So yeah, this is what, when you are naming the classes or interfaces, just make sure that they will be more of noun nature. Whatever the names you are going to use for class or interface, they should be of noun in nature, I mean nouns. Whereas for methods you will be using verbs. I think even this point you would know, but still it's my responsibility to reiterate. That's why I'm just saying. So when you are naming your classes or interfaces, just make sure that each and every word's first character will be of capital letter, and they will be of nouns. The class names or interface names will be of nouns. And within the class, when you organize also, this should be the style. Here you can see, first you should declare all public variables, I mean the instance variables. When you are writing, first you should declare all public variables, followed by protected variables, followed by private variables, and last should be the default. But anyway, it's optional given, but still based on company they recommend to follow that standard order. So all public variables first, and then all private variables, and then all protected variables second, and then private variables, and lastly default variables. This is how you should declare the variables also. And another point need to be remembered is, but we are not used to do that, but in real time they will strictly enforce rule on you, saying that if you have two variables, you have to declare them in two separate lines, like integer number 1 comma number 2. We are used to write like that, but in real time they will not let you to do that. They will ask you to write every declaration in a new line. So int number 1 semicolon, next line int number 2. So this is how you have to do that. So you are not allowed to have multiple variable declarations in one straight line. You will be asked to by your team lead or whoever it is to have variable declarations every variable in a new line. The point need to be understanding is not the lines of code matters, it's only the optimization measures what you are doing. It's not the lines of code. The things are to be so simple that everyone can understand your project uh, so easily. Again, they don't want whoever the developer need to sit beside them and explain what they have done that and why they have taken that. All that information will not be taken from the developer. So you need to understand whatever you are developing, it's not for your understanding, it's for the client understanding. And client should not again make you to sit beside him for explaining everything what you have done. So he should be able to understand all things. Only the service related information you can just explain, but even the code need not be explained by you. In such a way, you need to make sure that when you are uh, naming the variables or classes or performing any other things. So that is the reason I'm just saying all these things. So similarly, instance variables are static variables, all these things. You can just see this. And next, constructors. Obviously, you know that by default, after completing the instance variable declarations, you go for constructor declarations. And then after that, you will be having inner classes, if any you have. Immediately after constructors, you have to create inner classes. We haven't covered as part of our sessions, but you can also have inner classes. If you want detailed thing, you can just request me in the group, so that I'll conduct one session on inner classes, but not required for this particular part of training. That's the reason I haven't discussed. So immediately after constructor declarations, you should have this inner classes, and then followed by the instance methods. Here anyway quiz is there, but still answers are also given there. The first non-comment line of Java source file is package declaration, because the first comment lines will be header information. After that, you'll be having the package declaration. And yeah, class or interface documentation comment, whatever it is. Documentation comment means this third type. First, A is single line comment, B is of multi-line comment, C is of documentation comment anyway. And coming to naming conventions, I think you already know. Once again, just to reiterate, packages all in small letters, and DNS names, here you can see the example. Anyway, I have shown you by opening my CPC project how it will be. And next, the source files, this also I mentioned. There should be only one single public class inside a file, because every public class should be named in a separate file. Every public class should be named in a separate file. That is the reason every file can contain n number of classes or interfaces, but only one single public class. And this you already know. Classes and interfaces, they should be of nouns, and then each word's first character capital letter. And annotations we will be discussing once again later. And we already understood what is meant by annotation. I have shown you at certain places, like in yesterday's JUnit also we have seen few annotations. Anything that starts with at the rate, we just say it as annotation, but it should not be in comments. If it is in comments, it's meant for describing. If it is in comments, it's meant for describing. But if it is not in comments and at the rate, it indicates annotations. And methods, the first letter of internal word will be capital, but the first alphabet itself will be lowercase. So this is for method names. And anyway, for constructor, I need not tell the name, because constructor itself will have the same name as the class name. That's the reason we need not discuss about that. But while naming methods, you should remember that it should contain the first letter lowercase and each internal word's first character capital. And the same thing applies for variables also. The same thing applies for variables also. So avoid using short method names. And method names should be of verbs. Remember that nature also. And for variables, again the same thing. I'll just skip this, because I have just discussed the same way how you define variable method names, we will also use that. And exception objects, so here you can see, and this is the reason we are using the variable name as e, like earlier in the program also I have shown you, like catch of exception e. So that is the nature, just to make sure that it's not a normal variable, it's an exception type. Which of the following are true regarding naming conventions? And anyway, the answer is given there itself. B and C are correct. That is, the package names should be in lowercase letters. Classes and interfaces should have mixed case, first letter capital. The answer is given there anyway. And coming to documentation, yeah, this is the documentation comments as I said. So you have to use the documentation comments like that, with forward slash, two asterisks, and multiple lines, and then ended by asterisk and forward slash. You just go through all this. At the rate tags, this will be used in documentation comments. Remember that these are not annotations, don't get confused. These are not annotations here at the rate whatever you see. These are part of the documentation comments for describing. And at the rate param to indicate method parameters. At the rate return to say what that particular method is returning. At the rate exception to indicate what this particular method will throw exceptions. All that information you will be providing as part of the methods documentation comments. As part of the methods documentation comments, you will tell at the rate parameters, at the rate return arguments, at the rate exceptions that will be thrown. Similarly for variables also, at the rate values it holds, at the rate concurrency it will be used. Like this you will be giving. I think this you know because you all are good in chatting. FYI means for your information. And here you can see the best example. So before class, see, this is the header. The selection part you can see, this is the header. So giving the complete description about this particular file, giving the description about this file, and here you can see at the rate author. And if you are having multiple authors, you cannot write comma and give author names all like that. Each author should be in a separate line. Every author name should be defined in a separate line. Remember that point also. And this is the example for method documentation comments. Just as we have seen above, at the rate param, at the rate return values, at the rate exceptions, all that. This you can just see. So here examples are also given how to give this file header before a class, and then the method header, all that you can just see. And this block comments you are used to, but generally we don't use, we only know theoretically, but we have to use in real-time project developments. Just remember that. And the documentation methods, return tag, all these things. And formatting is very much important. Just 5 minutes, we will wind up. Formatting is very much important. So in real time when you are going to develop projects, indentation is very important. So how you provide this indentation makes everyone understand. I think you already know, when we use IDEs, by default indentation will be done. And here you can see what is said to you. 4 spaces should be used as the unit of indentation. Remember this point. 4 spaces must be used as the unit of indentation, not as you wish. Don't use spaces, just use indentation with 4 spaces. And luckily NetBeans or Eclipse, the IDEs will be using this indentation as 4 spaces. Even if you click tab also, by nature tab means 8 spaces in normal Word or notepads, but by default in IDEs it will be of 4 spaces only, because this is the universal industry standards. 4 spaces should be used as the unit of indentation. But if your project requires indentation to be modified, you can do that. Let me quickly show you that. So I'll just show you how you can just modify that. Here you can see window. I have said you Eclipse overview, but I haven't discussed this. Preferences. If you go to preferences, you can see there, like this you will be having so many things. So you can just expand Java, and there you can just see code style. Here you can see code style, just expand the code style, and there you can see formatter. And this is what the formatter you can see in that Wipro documentation. So you can just click on this formatter, you will get like this scene. And if you want to modify anything regarding the formatting, regarding the code style formatting, you can click on edit. So here you can see in the edit, you can see indentation. Under indentation you can see the tab size, and this will be by default. I'm just saying, in case if your project manager or the client asks you for going for 6 spaces as the indentation, this is how you can just do. So you can just click on window on the menu of Eclipse, and then go to preferences, and then expand the Java, and then click on code style, and then click on formatter, and then click on edit. And this edit gives you all kinds of formatting changes that you wish. You can just modify, and then once you are done, you can just close this by clicking on OK. Just click on OK, apply, and close. So this is how you will be doing in Eclipse. So I just said you as part of indentation, because this is what formatting is all about. So this formatting you will find it under the code style of Java in preferences window. And this is also very important. And one advantage what you get is, if you are not using IDE only, you need to remember all these formatting standards. But if you are using IDE, the greatest advantage is they are built with universal standards. And by default, if that particular line exceeds 80 characters, automatically the cursor comes and falls in the next line. If 80 characters are over, including spaces, if 80 characters are over in a line, by default, even though you are not pressing enter, the cursor falls in the next line. So anyway, that's the best use of this IDEs. And then yeah, this also we should remember, we are not used to, but when you are doing this, this is mandatory things. Here you can see uh, before operators and after operators, space must be there. As you can see in this example, before equal to, after equal to, before less, greater than, after greater than, before asterisk, I mean multiplication operation, and after multiplication operation, before plus, after plus, before division, after division, before question mark, after question mark, before colon, after colon. So I hope you can understand this. It's mandatory rule. So you must make sure that all the operations and all your instructions also follow this standard by giving one space. Without giving also it works, but by giving space it makes more readability. That's what you need to understand. And curly braces also, you need to make sure that the opening curly brace of a block and the closing curly brace of a block will be in the same line. I mean the margin will be in the same margin. Just remember that point also. So the opening curly brace of a block and the closing curly brace of a block must be on the same margin. That means if I click on roller and check with the roller, they should be on the same margin. That's what you need to remember as part of curly braces. And Java Bean conventions also, you just need to make sure that whenever you are creating a Java Bean, all the variables that you are going to have inside a bean must and should be declared private. And you need to generate getter setter methods to get the values from another class, or to set the values from another class. But all the variables of this bean class must and should be declared private. Only the bean class itself should be declared public. This is what the Java Beans conventions, always do remember this. So when you are creating Java Beans, all the bean class itself should be declared public, which should be for which object can be created from anywhere, but all the variables declared inside a bean will be declared private. And you need to generate getter setter methods through which the values can be set to the bean, or the values can be get from the bean. So this is what you need to remember as part of Java Beans. So that's it. This is with regard to the coding standards. Answer is given anyway there itself. Correct way of declaration you can see there, because here class EG no capital letter used, interface EG no capital letter used, class Wipro employee, Wipro W is capital, E is employee E is capital. So that's it from my end. If you have any queries with regard to today's session, you can post it in the comment section. Else, you can post your roll numbers in the comment section. Any queries, post it in the comment section. Any queries, post it in the comment section. Else, you can post your roll numbers in the comment section. And tomorrow I will be discussing the collections. Collections also, as required for this, I'll just discuss. I thought I can just give introduction, but we were late anyway. Let's wind up here. Okay, I did not see any queries. I hope everyone understood today's session. Let's wind up for today and meet tomorrow again at 10:30 a.m. Thank you.